Welcome to the Mukilteo Football Show. My name is Miles. It is Boxing Day, December 26th. Let me open a Boxing Day beer, a BDB. We are smooshing two shows together today, so we're going to do both the winners, so top three winners, top three losers, and then three quote-unquote Sunday Best Awards, I guess Saturday Best Awards. Christmas weekend awards, how about that? We did do a show Friday, Christmas Eve. My brother, my dad, we did the 1972 Pittsburgh Steelers Oakland Raiders divisional round game, otherwise known as the Immaculate Reception. Every once in a while we'll do a Barn Series game where we look back at an old classic and just talk about it. We did that. It was fun. Kirk's takes on the cameraman being too zoomed in during the Immaculate Reception. And we got a comment. Thanks for listening. Agreeing with Dad that back then in 1972, they used to let players play football. Oh, so there's so much to talk about for Week 16. So I'm just kind of combining it all. I mean, we have set up two playoff games, basically, for Tampa Bay and Carolina next week. Basically a playoff game. And then no matter what happens in Week 17, Tennessee Titans versus Jacksonville Jaguars, Week 18, is set up as a playoff game. So that's exciting. Kind of cool the way that the chips fell. It was a good weekend of football. There's a lot of fun games that spread out quite a bit. Saturday Red Zone was weird. You know, there was a cold Arctic blast, over the Christmas weekend here. Even the Miami game was 45 degrees. 8 games at temperatures below freezing. And just watching Red Zone and Squim, we were watching like 7 games of frozen players and limited fans, presumably opting for cozy fireplace in the holiday instead of the freezing, Saints-Browns game. And then one game in that morning slate, Minnesota versus the Giants was in a dome. It looked so comfy, so cozy. All right, let's get to the show. Mukilteo Football Show. The show's football everything. NFL history, legacy, ups and downs of a season. Follow us at MUK_football on Twitter or YouTube. Subscribe, share, review on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you get podcasts. We have shows Sunday after Sunday Night Football, Monday after Monday Night Football, Thursday after Thursday Night Football. But today, we're combining it all. 3 winners, 3 losers, 3 awards for a wild Week 16. Let's start it off with the first winner. The Green Bay Packers. Obviously, they were a sub 5% playoff odds before Week 14. Now 2 weeks later, they're currently at 27% playoff odds per 538.com. So on Christmas Eve, the Detroit Lions, the Seattle Seahawks, the Washington Commanders, and the New York Giants, the other 4 teams in the NFC wildcard race ahead of the Packers, all lost. And everyone but the Giants were blown out. Meanwhile, Christmas Day, Packers come in, defeat the Miami Dolphins, a game they were not expected to win. The offense, Aaron Rodgers, they moved the ball, pretty well. But as I said in the preview, this would be a great time for that Packers defense on paper to show up. And they did. We'll talk Tua in the awards, but the Green Bay defense, they were there. The Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, those big plays, you can't bottle them up forever. But on the whole, Devondre Campbell, Rasul Douglas, they played better than they have all year. And they have a shot. The Packers were happy. They were happy. Oh, man, the post-game interviews with Pam Oliver were awesome. Aaron Rodgers wishing everybody a Merry Christmas out there, talking for like way longer than he has to. And Pam Oliver said, look at you in a good mood. I love that classic Pam Oliver moment. And then she did a interview with Jair Alexander who was also so like open and casual and warm. He's talking through the thought process of his one of the big plays. Oh, he really overthrowing this. He's like telling the story as if to his friends. And he's on national TV, and then he's looking right at the camera. Spend time with your family. The Pack is back. It was cool, and I mean, Packers are back. They're right back in this. They play the Vikings next week. They play the Lions the week after that. And, Commanders and Giants are standing in their way. There is, I hate to say it, but there is a realistic opportunity that the Packers slip into the NFC playoffs, where anything can happen. All right, next winner. The Carolina Panthers. So they kept their hopes alive for the NFC South crown, setting up a nice Week 17 battle versus Tampa Bay. This game was a cold tub of water on all of us, everyone except for Panthers fans, because everyone in the NFL was working ourselves into a heated frenzy about the Detroit Lions. Winning 6 out of 7, sprinting to the playoffs. How fun is this? Dan Campbell, Jared Goff redemption. And the Panthers just dumped that cold water, the slow pummel, the slow pound, as they say. This felt like 2008 Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams Panthers. They had 320 rushing yards. That's the second most amount of team rushing yards this season, only because the Eagles had an historic top 5 all-time rushing days against the Packers in Week 12. Teams do not rush 300 yards. It's happened. It's been done 9 times in the last 10 years. And the thing about it is, what's different about this Panthers performance is it wasn't, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens doing it, or Jalen Hurts and the Eagles doing it, where you've got a quarterback rushing and then 2 running backs doing well. Colin Kaepernick did this once with the 49ers. This was just pure elite Sam Darnold handoffs to Deontay Foreman, 21 carries for 165 yards. Chuba Hubbard, 12 carries for 125 yards. They just gashed the Lions. It wasn't even fun to watch on Red Zone. And of course, the Panthers, I hate to even put this out into the ether, but last week they had like 16 rushing yards against Pittsburgh. So that they're gonna do this. To the Seahawks game, they ran the ball up and down the field. Then they could do nothing against Pittsburgh in Week 15. Now they come with this, 300-yard rushing day against the Lions, just shouting down everything we ever wanted in the NFC playoffs. And next week, they're dropping a rushing dud against the Buccaneers, because the Panthers are just, dumping a cold water on this NFC playoff field. You just know they're dropping a dud. Oh, well, we'll talk more about that when we do the Week 17 preview on Thursday. All right, let's get to the third and final winner. The Cowboys-Eagles game. I called it a loser last week. After Week 15, I was like, man, it sucks the Cowboys lost to the Jaguars, because now that game that was going to be a literal playoff game with number 1 seed implications isn't as meaningful. Jalen Hurts goes out. It's Gardner Minshew in for the Eagles. Didn't matter. It was still a 40-34 classic. My brother, my wife, and I were watching at the Kingston Ferry, just on YouTube TV on our phone. That was so fun. Second half of that game was great. Deep bombs to T.Y. Hilton, of all people. Gardner Minshew balling out after doing the Mike Leach eulogy. That was meaningful. There were big defensive plays. The Josh Sweat interception of Dak as he was trying to float it over him. That was just made for good TV. And there's a lot of fumbles and stuff. There's a lot of excitement. And it was a good offensive shootout. That's what it was. This was an offensive shootout in Texas on Christmas Eve, in contrast to the cold, literal tundra of the Browns-Saints games, or just the below sub-zero temperature, not sub-zero, sub-freezing temperatures, and, the Kansas City, Seattle game, Buffalo, Chicago, Texans, Titans. Just playing in that cold, it's slow, it's hard to catch the ball, it's not as fun to watch. This game was. I mean, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown for the Eagles, CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys, all had 100 yards receiving, making plays all over the place. Ended with excitement. Miles Sanders fumble. The Eagles defense made a stop barely. Gardner Minshew almost did this. He had 141 to get a touchdown, down 6, and he did drive 56 yards. But ultimately, a 4th and 10 heave. So it was a good game. A lot of fun. I love the hypocrisy of both fan bases. And fans get to be hypocrites, right? Their fan is short for fanatic. That's okay. But the Eagles in week 6 were calling their victory over the Cooper Rush Cowboys perfectly fine. A truly legitimate win over the Cowboys. We are 6-0 now, and that was the full Cowboys fight, and we blew it up. And Cowboys fans are saying, like, man, we would have won that game if we had Dak. So you lose, we win in the moral victory sense. Just wait. Now it's flipped. Now the Eagles fans are saying, we would have won if we had Jalen Hurts. And Cowboys fans are the ones saying this is a truly legitimate win over the number 1 seed Eagles. You got to love fans. All right, let's get to the top 3 losers. Former Broncos coach Nathaniel Hackett fired this morning after the 51-14 beatdown on Nickelodeon to the Rams, who were plummeting themselves, and Baker Mayfield. Nickelodeon, Baker's gonna bake. This is about as deserved as any firing. I mean, Hackett was unable to hack it, as it were. He was clearly hired to get Aaron Rodgers. So he was not hired as part of an interview process, as part of pure merit. He was hired because Aaron Rodgers hired by a lame duck owner, by the way. He was hired because Aaron Rodgers publicly praised Nathaniel Hackett all the time as his quarterback's coach. And, Hackett was bad. He was truly over his head. Every single sign of a football team not trusting their coach was there. Blow-ups on the sidelines, non-answers in the media, penalties, just bad game plans, sudden blowouts. It was all there. And Hackett's press conferences too, amateur hour. He is unable to articulate issues. That can't be good for a coach. He probably could. If he can't articulate to us, who are asking our own questions, how can he articulate to his team what he wants? Does he want anything? It's now a picture is forming where it's not hard to see why Aaron Rodgers loved Nathaniel Hackett. Because Rodgers clearly knew more than Hackett. Hackett's got no spine, nothing to offer. Rodgers was in charge of the offense and praising Hackett as a front. And lastly, Hackett's biggest flaw was believing in Russell Wilson, or believing that Russell Wilson even knew what he wanted. Because although I was not on this camp, I thought Russell Wilson should be throwing more. There are a lot of smart people out there saying the Let Russ Cook PR campaign, that when asked to elaborate, Russell Wilson was unable to elaborate on what exactly he wanted. He would say basically the pillars of every single offense. He wants to be like a Bill Walsh with a Bill Belichick, with a Andy Reid, with a Kyle Shanahan, with some elements of the 70s Steelers and some elements of the greatest show on turf. In the end, Russell Wilson just threw everything at the board. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. Nathaniel Hackett bought into that. And, deserved fire. This was a really, really bad head coach. Broncos fans should be happy that he is gone. All right, next loser. I know the Buccaneers won the game Christmas night, but Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles, it's just looking it's so painful to watch. Christmas night, the family is there. We've got the game on this brand new giant TV in this empty space and a new addition to our, my cousin's house. It's looking great. Nobody's watching. That's how boring the game was. Buccaneers, Cardinals. And Todd Bowles and Byron Leftwich, they can't see the dichotomy of their decisions to run it on 2nd and 1, and then 3rd and 1, and then 4th and 1, and it's a turnover on downs, versus when they have to throw and go up-tempo to Brady, the offense suddenly works. They can't see that. What they see is we got to run the ball more. Never better. It's not about running it better. It's about running it more. It's like, it's driving people insane. It's seriously, it must be a social experiment. It's easier to throw on 1st and 10 than it is on 3rd and 8, but the Buccaneers don't admit that. They're going to run the ball to try to get the rushing attempts up, and then they're going to have to throw when the run game isn't working. And then when they are asked to evaluate the problem, they don't say the run game doesn't work. They say we should have ran it more. It's insanity. Brady pulls these things out of a hat, and it's complicated because Brady's not even playing that well. If this was elite Brady, I'd be even more frothing at the mouth than I am. So it is complicated. But the fact, you can just see the shape of the game. This has happened with the Saints game, with the Rams game, now the Cardinals. It's Buccaneer Brady, when he gets to call the plays, when he gets to run up tempo, they look good for the first time in the game. They beat a team that, had shot itself in the foot multiple times, as the Trace McSorley Cardinals did, in overtime, when they shouldn't have. All right, next loser. Major contender offensive line injuries. One of the reasons that I do not want more football games in the regular season is the inevitability of major injury to some of the best players in the world. The Bengals lost right tackle Lyle Collins to a torn ACL. He is done for the year. He's a third of that free agent group that came in that was gelling, making the Bengals like whispers of juggernaut. Now it's a little bit more like last year, which is, hey, they did go to the Super Bowl, but there was talk of the Bengals, as the secret juggernaut. I don't know now. I don't know. And the Eagles lost right tackle Lane Johnson, abdominal tear. They say he might be back for the playoffs, but they're non-committal. It's just the Bengals and Eagles are now both on upset alert because when a team just isn't for some reason as good as they used to be, look to the offensive line. There's always something going on there. But look at Tampa Bay. Look at an example of why isn't Tom Brady playing good? Why don't the Bucs look right? It's offensive line injuries up there. So not fun. Not fun. It's the worst part of football, all the injuries. Wishing both Lane Johnson and Lyle Collins health going forward. All right, 3 awards for the Christmas weekend. Let's do this. The Immaculate Reception Replica Opportunity Award goes to the Oakland Raiders. So Dad Kirk and I, of course, did the 72 Barn series between the Raiders and Steelers. We talked about it all the time. The Saturday night football game on Christmas Eve was the 50th anniversary between the Raiders and the Steelers. They honored Franco Harris at halftime, who passed this week, sadly. And the game, it was a boring game. Not unlike the Immaculate Reception game, actually. And Kenny Pickett drove the Steelers down the field to score a touchdown, a slant route to George Pickens in the end zone. And there's all these posts. 50 years later, the Steelers, another last-second win over the Raiders. Wow, look at that. Like, hold up, everybody. The Immaculate Reception is not replicated by a game-winning drive with a great throw in the red zone. The Pickens touchdown, if you're purely talking, the Pickens touchdown is more like the Kenny Stabler touchdown in 1972 that preceded the Immaculate Reception. The real Immaculate Reception replica opportunity was when the Raiders got the ball back with 40 seconds left to go on Sunday Night Football, and I'm thinking to myself, the Raiders with a chance for some payback. And Derek Carr had Hunter Renfrow. He had him. And he just did what Derek Carr always does, which is, especially on deep routes, predetermine where the ball is going to go and not really see the shape of the game. Renfrow had the right idea, bending across. The Raiders could have had a true, it wouldn't have been Immaculate Reception or anything, but it would have been wild. Renfrow, I think, scores that touchdown, to be honest. I know there's a safety there who could have made the tackle, but Derek Carr missed that opportunity for some real revenge. Oh, gosh, it was so close. and now it's lost to history because it's an interception that he threw, 3 miles behind Hunter Renfrow. So that's too bad. All right, next award. Are you down, tired, feelings of severe despondency or dejection? Consult your doctor about Zylstra. Shane Zylstra, Detroit Lions tight end. I just found this funny because the fantasy world, fantasy football, fantasy managers with Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, just tearing out their hair in garbage time as the Lions against the Panthers, driving into the red zone, and 3 times the touchdown goes to a truly anonymous 8 career catches before this game. Shane Zylstra with 3 touchdowns. It's incredible. It's one of those classic, December NFL stories that makes fantasy football so frustrating. Just wanted to bring that up. All right, last award. And appropriate sound effect, because the last award is the 2009 Matt Schaub, Texans quarterback, award. Goes to Tua Tagovailoa. It is hard to watch Tua. Christmas morning, Tua versus Rodgers. You're expecting Tua to be the good quarterback, this elite offense with all these stats. But what you get, and this is multiple primetime big games in a row, what you get is hard to watch. It's hard to watch Tua. Shaky, it's lucky, it's poor decisions. He threw 3 interceptions to end that game in Green Bay. Got the ball 3 times in the fourth quarter, threw 3 interceptions. They are pure. I don't know if they're on Tua, but they are miscommunications with which you could probably blame the quarterback in some fashion. And the reason I call it the Matt Schaub Award is because that's how I felt about the 2009 Houston Texans. Because, you're playing fantasy, you're looking at all these historic stats, and so you get to watch a game, you're like, wow, the Matt Schaub Texans are playing the Drew Brees Saints. It's going to be a shootout. But you're left profoundly disappointed with your Matt Schaub experience. That's how I feel about Tua Tagovailoa. It's stats that are coming from the stars. Jalen Waddle is playing the Arian Foster breakout role. Tyreek Hill, the established superstar, playing that in his prime, playing that Andre Johnson role. And the 2009 Texans were Kyle Shanahan, a very young Kyle Shanahan. And the 2022 Dolphins are Mike McDaniel. But the point is, it's not the quarterback. He's okay. Sometimes even exponential, in the getting the right scheme, getting the ball to these players. But he is not with he is not with Mahomes, not with Allen, not with Burrow. RG3 posted on the internet. He says, this is a bad game for Tua. Always brings out the haters. Well, maybe RG3. Maybe this creates some haters. Some of us have sat down for like 12 hours of Tua Dolphins football in hyped primetime games. Pittsburgh, Chargers, 49ers, now Green Bay Christmas morning. And we see nothing but 2 elite receivers getting what they can and Tua just dinking around. And I was a Tua defender in the offseason. Then the Baltimore comeback happened in week 2 and I somehow turned into a hater. Not to, go full Principal Skinner here, but I didn't move my position at all. Like, am I so out of touch? No, it is the others who are wrong. Going too high, too low. Like I said, nature of being a fan, short for fanatic, this is okay. But I'm done on Tua. This is just, even the Dolphins clearly behind the scenes don't believe in this guy. They've been desperately trying for Deshaun Watson and Tom Brady over the last few years. I don't know. It's a bummer. That was a bummer to see, especially since I was rooting for the Dolphins. Maybe that's coloring some of my analysis here. But, okay, that's it. That's it for today. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a wonderful holiday weekend. Hoping good for the new year. We'll be back Thursday to preview Week 17. We got some good games. Miami, New England. Carolina, Tampa Bay for the NFC South, basically. Jets, Seahawks, ramifications with both conferences. And Bills, Bengals. Woo-hoo-hoo, that's a good one. Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals. So fabulous games lining up for the new year. My name is Miles. We'll see you Thursday. Good night.